Little past high noon here on Jones and Keefe, WEEI. It is the day before Thanksgiving. It's Patriots Friday for all intents and purposes. We'll get to our four-pack of questions for Patriots and Colts coming up about 15 minutes from now. That was Jerod Mayo yesterday. Asked about relieving DeMarcus Cousins of any play calling. DeMarcus Covington, rather, of any play calling. And he said, no. I think we're calling the right plays. It's about executing on the field, putting it back on his players. I said this earlier, Keith. I like the Colts this weekend in this game, which is rare for me.
Normally you pick the Pats like 8 weeks in a row.
Normally I'm at least taking the Pats and the points.
Right.
If not outright in a game. So I think the last time I took the opponent was the Jets game here at the Patriots won. I think that's the last time, if that tells you anything about how you should wager this weekend.
Yep.
But last week should shake your confidence, and I don't expect the team to answer Mayo calling them out again. They already kind of sort of answered the bell after the Jaguars game. I don't think they were playing for Mayo or responding to Mayo per se, but they didn't check out. They didn't quit and tap out on the year. They might do that now. The end's in sight. It's the bye week.
Bye week's coming up.
You're 3-9. Like you're guaranteed a losing season. You're probably not mathematically eliminated from the playoffs yet, but you're close. Yeah. I think you could get people just tapping out on the year and going, all right, the coach keeps throwing us under the bus. We got to go execute the plays.
Yeah.
You can't help us once we're between the white lines. All these comments he's made all week. Yeah, no thanks. I can see players tapping out.
Oh, for sure. They're 3-9, like you said. Like this thing is could be in a bit of a free fall. I also think it's comical, sort of that exchange that Mayo had with the reporter. I think it's a fair question, but his answer doesn't surprise me because Jerod Mayo has never called plays. Like
true.
He was the linebacker coach last year, and even though he and Steve Belichick were like de facto co-coordinators, they even made it very clear Steve called the plays. Jerod was more of like a practice guy or whatever, and then Steve called the plays. Bill even said
Mayo ran the meetings.
Yep.
And then, Steve Belichick called the plays on Sunday.
They were somewhat tight-lipped about it, but then at the same time, Bill would want to compliment his kid, and there'd be games where he's like, Steve called a great game. Steve called a great game. So DeMarcus Covington has 12 more games experience calling defensive plays than Jerod Mayo. Because normally in these situations where you have a head coach who was a coordinator on either side of the ball, they take over, they let their coordinators do it in some cases, and then it gets to the point where they're like, no, I'm going to do it. Right? There's a handful of examples, even recently, of maybe offensive guys being like, all right, I thought I was going to let you do it, now I'm going to step in and do it. Jerod Mayo would have nothing to like lean on or point to be like, hey, remember when I called great plays or when I called great defense? I'm going to have to do it.
He'd be scrambling even more.
Can you imagine his head spinning on game day if he was also calling defensive plays?
No, I can't.
He'd be in a lot of trouble. So, of course, he's going to let Covington do it the rest of the year. Plus, that way Covington can also be another fall guy at the end of the year. Covington and Van Pelt could be fall guys. I don't think Elliott Wolf could be after year one, but you never know. Like, this is a conversation we got into yesterday, but just like sort of who has a strong grasp on their current job. But no, Mayo's not going to take over play calling duty. He doesn't know how to do it. He's never done it.
There are people a lot smarter than me.
Yeah.
Well,
no. Name 20. Name 30 of them. But he's saying he's going to, but you're right. That answer also sort of lets him off the hook. He's like, I'm not going to do it. But he doesn't say I've never done it. He's just like, I'm not going to do it. DeMarcus is doing a good job. It's the plays aren't being executed. Once again, just dumping it on the players.
Yeah, a couple of texts, 37937. What was he doing all those years with Bill? Great question.
I don't know.
I mean, really.
Stabbing him in the back?
Yeah, he carried around a baseball bat.
Right.
He knew he was going to have the job and stabbing
a bat
back
around, yeah.
Also this from Dice, 37937. Jones, all that might be true. Players tapping out and not fighting for Mayo, etc. But it's still possible the Colts and Richardson give you the game.
100%.
That's true, but neither of us are picking that because you're also picking the Colts.
Yeah, I am. Trevor Lawrence and Mason Rudolph are two quarterbacks that beat you recently. So it's like those guys could give you the game. They could want to give you the game, and you might not be able to take it.
Rudolph is a backup, and Lawrence was on his way to losing the job.
I thought he was done. I thought Trevor Lawrence, and I know he got hurt and whatever, but like he looked horrible going into that. So yeah, no, that's possible. Like, it's hard for me to bet on Anthony Richardson. I'm not going to bet money on this game because I could see this one going either way. You could see Richardson or Drake May throwing an interception at the end of the game that cost their team the game. The Colts are no great shakes, but I don't know how you can't be a bit shooketh after how the game against Miami played out. I know Miami has a similar record. They're a better team. They're more talented than the Colts.
Definitely.
But still, I mean, you just got your pants pulled down in the second quarter on. Like,
I'm shookish.
Should be.
think about the 15 points that they scored. It was basically a 4th and long Hail Mary heave to Austin Hooper, and then it was a backup quarterback can't handle the snap, scoop and score.
Correct.
That's how you got on the board. Otherwise, you would have been shut out.
That's it.
Awful.
So not good. I agree with you. We can get into our expectations for Drake Maye and the game this weekend. Just real quick, this is a show poll they did on the Greg Hill Show this morning.
All right, what do you got?
I know you expect Kraft to bring back Mayo next year.
I do. Now, there's 5 games to go. 3-14 looks pretty bad.
Yeah,
but no, I still think he's back.
Your expectation is he's back. So this is a different question. This is not what do you expect to happen. This is what should happen. Should Jerod Mayo be the head coach of the Patriots next year, Keith? Yes or no?
As of right now, I'll say no.
No. I certainly feel that way.
Yeah.
What I was surprised at is not that you or I necessarily answer it that way. 69%.
Nice.
68.6. We're going to round.
No.
69%.
Nice.
Say no, he should not be the head coach next year.
That's high.
That is quite high.
Well, here's the reality. Nobody really wanted him.
Nobody really wanted him in the first place.
Nobody really wanted him.
Right. People wanted Bill out like me.
No, even that. Yes, but 50-50. We both were doing shows at the time, not together. But
when I say people wanted him out, not a majority.
No, God,
it was
no.
very split. But there was a healthy group that wanted Bill out. But I think of that group, like me, I didn't want to replace him with Mayo.
No, this is oversimplifying it, but I think at the time that Belichick was gone, it was 50-50. So 50% of the fan base just wanted Bill. Mm-hmm. The other 50 didn't. I would say it was 25% wanted Mike Vrabel and 25%, like me, wanted an offensive guy that never met the Belichicks. Not only not in the coaching tree, not even close to the coaching tree, but offense. So it was literally keep Belichick, bring in Vrabel, or bring in an offensive guy. They're like, how about this? Mayo. They're like, a guy with no head coaching or coordinator experience who has only been in the Patriots organization, has never done it before, and apparently knew he was going to have the job for years. That's who we're going to bring in.
And has never even been a coordinator. I know you've highlighted this before, but it's never even called plays.
So I really don't think many people wanted him. And then as a Patriots fan, you're like, all right, well, this is the guy they have. Let's see. Right? You're not actively rooting against them. You want the team to succeed.
And now you've seen it.
You've seen it.
And it looks atrocious.
You've seen it for 12 games. And, there was a little bit of a part where you're like, hey, maybe this is looking better. But that was just a mirage. That was Drake Maye. Drake Maye made you think things were looking a little bit better. It's not. The rest of the operation is not. So do you trust him to get the most out of Drake Maye going forward? I don't. So, yeah, and I'm not like, I understand you want to be patient, and there are guys that didn't have great first years, and if you ran away from them, what would have happened? Bill Belichick. If you ran away from Bill Belichick after year one, who knows what would have happened?
I mean, a guy who has arguably the best team in football this year, Dan Campbell. Like, if you could have fired Dan Campbell after 1 year. They looked terrible. You could have done that, and you would have been wrong.
Yep.
But there's a bunch of guys, and I know some of the ones you list off a lot, Keith. There's a bunch of guys who you probably knew after year one they weren't going to work.
Oh, my God, yeah.
Matt Patricia, you should have known after 1 year it wasn't going to work. Yeah.
Who you hung on too long. But then there was also, like, Urban Meyer. They made the right call, got rid of him before Steve Wilkes they got rid of. Like, there were guys they got rid of, and then their teams with the next guy made a boost, right? Like, as bad as he is now, Doug Peterson got the Jaguars to the playoffs not so far after Urban Meyer. Even Cliff Kingsbury got the Cardinals to the playoffs not that long after Steve Wilkes. So some of those moves, like Freddie Kitchens, horrible. That Stefanski comes in, and they're like a real operation. So, yeah, if you see it, you shouldn't just hold on to the guy simply because it's, you got to be patient.
The Raiders are probably a little different because Pierce took over the year prior at the end of the year. But if the Raiders moved on from Antonio Pierce, is anybody like, oh, give Antonio Pierce more time? Like, I know it was a year plus.
No, see you later.
That guy could easily get fired. And I think the Raiders would be right to do it. So, yeah, I agree. If you know you have the wrong guy, I think a lot of us assume that. If you know you have the wrong guy, it's time to move on. So I agree with the majority. I'm surprised it's that high, though. I knew there was a lot of backlash from Mayo. I didn't realize it was, almost 3/4 of the fan base saying
that is pretty alarming.
He should not be back next year. You mentioned Drake Maye. What are your expectations for him this Sunday? I expect him to bounce back. He can't look as bad. The offense can't look as bad as they did on the road in Miami, at home against the worst team in the Colts. do you have faith he has a bounce back game? Because I'm a little worried about it. I'm more worried going into the game about Maye than I have been in any of these other games.
Yeah, you know what? I feel like he will bounce back. I mean, I think part of it was the guys around him really let him down. Still on him, he's a quarterback. You got to elevate the play. That's why I wanted him to play right off the rip and elevate those guys. But you just constantly were moving the ball backwards with all the penalties. He did turn it over, right? He had the bad fumble, and then once again late in the game, interception. So I hope he's better. The Rams game, I thought he was pretty good. It was one of his better games. Would you say Rams game, maybe Jaguars game were probably the best?
Yeah,
we've seen of him.
I think I would lean the Rams game out of those two, but those are probably the two best. Yeah, I didn't hate his Houston game. I know a lot of people feel like that production happened when the game was already out of hand. I mean, it was his first game. I thought that was a good game.
Yeah, I didn't think it was too bad. I know the Indy game, the Tennessee game, he had the bad pick at the end of the game, but that was also where he really used his legs. I mean, he almost ran for 100 yards in that game. So overall, I think it's been more hits than misses. So that's why, and I think when you factor in the Colts defense, it's a
bad defense.
Yeah, it's not great.
Here's what I would love: no turnovers.
How about that?
Maybe 0 is too lofty of a goal, but he's been real cavalier about it. He told WEEI Afternoons on Monday his turnovers aren't a problem. He kind of caught himself in the middle of his answer yesterday, like, yeah, I mean, turnovers, they don't bother me. And then he caught himself, and he was like, well, I mean, you don't want to turn it over, of course. Mm-hmm. Van Pelt was very direct today. He said the turnovers have to stop. No excuse. Rookie, 10-year player, doesn't matter. Can't turn the ball over and expect to win games.
So I think was the Jacksonville game the only game that he played start to finish? Obviously, the Jets game
where he didn't turn it over.
I think so.
So this is that kind of game. I mean, the Colts are bad.
Oh, yeah.
And they're bad specifically on defense.
Yep.
I don't expect the Patriots to win the game, but I'd like a strong performance out of Drake Maye where he doesn't turn it over. And I really don't think that's too much to ask in this game this weekend. So what are your expectations for the game? Do you see the Patriots winning it? Will they fight for Mayo? Should he be back? And what do you think Drake Maye does on Sunday against the Colts? You can jump in here. Jim's in Manchester on Jerod Mayo. Go ahead, Jim.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. How are you?
Very good. How are you?
Good. Just to touch base, I'm a Cleveland Browns fan, so I'm not much better off than you guys are. But if Mayo gets fired, why not bring in Stefanski? Because Stefanski is not going to be in Cleveland.
Okay. Stefanski, two-time coach of the year, if I'm not mistaken, taking the Browns to the playoffs at least one time.
I mean, I don't hate Stefanski. He's been pretty good. He could keep Van Pelt. You could have the same dynamic that he had in Cleveland. But I think you could shoot higher than that.
I would hope to shoot higher than that, too.
I mean, like, in a vacuum, Stefanski better head coach than Mayo.
Definitely an upgrade on Mayo.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
But I'd like to shoot higher than that.
Me too.
Yeah.
They should be able to. I think they should be able to do better than that. If they fired Mayo,
I would think it would be somewhat intriguing for an offensive coach to want to coach Drake Maye.
Yeah, well, realistically, you're a head coaching candidate. You want to work with a good, talented young quarterback. Realistically, who's the best young quarterback you can work with?
Caleb Williams or Drake Maye.
Okay, Williams is on the list for sure.
Yeah.
Because Eberflus is going to be out.
Yep.
Is Caleb Williams a slam dunk better prospect than Drake Maye? I don't think so.
I think if you ask 10 offensive coaches, it might be 5 and 5.
Yeah.
Like, I think it would be pretty split.
But you're not going to work with Jaden Daniels. You're not going to work with Bo Nix. You're not going to work with Stroud. You know, if you really liked Herbert a few years ago, well, now he's got his guy.
Yeah, like, do you think
Harbaugh?
Do you think you can fix Trevor Lawrence? I mean, I would much rather take a shot at Drake Maye or
Me
Caleb
too.
Williams.
I would much rather. I mean, the Patriots organization is down, and I wouldn't be thrilled about working for the Crafts these days. But I'd rather work for the Patriots than the Jaguars, and I'd rather work with Maye than Lawrence. Yes.
Dak Prescott?
Not even young.
No, he's not young, but at least he's a quarterback.
No, I'm saying if you want like an up-and-coming quarterback and you want to work with a quarterback who can really ascend and be one of those elite guys.
I mean, you'd have to look at like the teams that are like a real rebuild, like whoever gets Shadur Sanders or stuff like that.
And do you want to work with those guys?
Deion might not let you.
Do you want to? That's a good point. Do you want to work with Shadur Sanders or Cam Ward? I know you hate Carson Beck.
Yeah, I'm not a fan.
Like, is that really what you want to do?
No.
So if they opened up the job, I would want to do better than Stefanski. I'm with you.
What if the Bengals fire Taylor?
That's the right answer. So Burrow's the right answer.
If it's open.
Yeah.